It's Friday afternoon in Jerusalem's Shuk, or market. Everyone is rushing around with last-minute preparations for Shabbat, or the Sabbath, because once the sun sets, everything stops.
So what are you doing right now to get ready for Shabbat?
We're shopping, we're buying challah, we're buying desserts, we're getting some treats.
We're going to buy some challah, some chicken.
In a move that's completely counterintuitive in our hustle culture, Jews press pause on the grind. For 25 hours from sundown on Friday to nightfall on Saturday, Jews around the world step into an alternate reality where the noise of deadlines, notifications, and work is muted. In its place are the sounds of worship, community, family, just being. But this isn't just about relaxing weekend vibes. Every Friday night for millennia, Jews have entered a metaphysical portal, except it doesn't take them somewhere else in space, but somewhere else in time. So what do Jews understand about taking a break that the rest of the world forgot? Every Friday at sundown, Jews around the world put down their phones and turn off their computers and step into a different dimension, Shabbat. So according to Jewish tradition, the origins of Shabbat go back to the beginning of time itself. In the Torah, after 6 days or stages of bringing the universe into existence, God looked back on what he had created, decided it was good, and stopped working. Emulating that pause is fundamental to the rhythm of Jewish life. Because when Moses came down Mount Sinai with the 10 Commandments, right next to don't murder, don't steal, and there is only one God, there's the commandment to remember the Sabbath and make it holy. Just like God rested on the seventh day, we too must rest on the seventh day. But what does resting mean? Did God want the Jewish people to kick back and binge Netflix? Moses only gives the Jewish people 2 instructions: stop working and don't light any fire. Okay, we all know what lighting a fire is, but what is work? The Torah doesn't say. But the next topic in the Torah gives us some clues. Right after Moses tells the Jews about God's commandment not to work, he continues with the instructions for the creation of the Mishkan. The Mishkan, or tabernacle, was a pop-up temple the Jews traveled with while they wandered the desert. Portable walls, portable holy chambers, portable altars. Great for 40 years on the go and for the few hundred years before you get around to building a more permanent temple. Building the Mishkan was a giant communal DIY project. Everyone contributed something: materials, skills, and lots of work. 39 different categories of work to be exact. But what do Shabbat and the Mishkan have to do with each other? Seems like nothing. Except the medieval scholar Rashi explained that God told Moses that all work to build the Mishkan had to stop on Shabbat. So, putting 2 and 2 together, any work done to build the Mishkan is the work that the Torah is talking about. All those 39 categories of work that were used to create and break down and travel with the Mishkan represent the work that's prohibited on Shabbat. And it's a wide range.
Baking, kneading dough, threshing wheat, laundering clothes.
Sewing or like weaving, planting seeds, squeezing.
Kindling fire.
Which in modern terms also includes directly activating electricity. You can't drive your car, turn lights on and off, or use a computer on Shabbat.
We can't cook.
We can't take off fruits from trees, do anything in regards to landscaping.
Go on your phone, right? Watch TV.
The footnote to this long list of rules is that you can, and in fact have to break any Shabbat rules necessary to save someone's life. Shabbat is important, but saving a life is more important than anything else. The practice of Shabbat has always been counterintuitive, working against all our instincts to go, go, go. Well before iPhones had us tethered to our screens, Shabbat asked us to step away from our plows, to pause the work that earns us money, to give up, even just temporarily, our connection to the outside world. And full disclosure, this can be difficult.
The difficult part is not knowing what happens. It's hard to just disconnect from everything.
It's difficult to disconnect. Getting out of the inertia of day-to-day life can be very, very challenging.
Keeping Shabbat can mean ending your workday much earlier than your colleagues, or cramming more hours of work into Thursday to make up for lost time on Friday, or giving up on a dream career, or walking away from a promotion, or missing out on lucrative opportunities. So with all the downsides, what's the upside?
The food,
And the singing,
Family time, meals, hanging out with the kids.
the quiet, and the peace that you have. Just being able to be with family, friends, without all the hassle of the week.
Being with my family, sitting at the table, the calm, the disconnection from technology.
It's the one day of the week where you know you can be at peace and there's nothing that's making you stressed.
It's the opportunity to really have an introspective experience and assess, like, how was my week? How have I grown? Sometimes we're so busy, we don't have an opportunity to kind of look at ourselves and say, where am I going in my life?
What all these people are saying is that there's more to Shabbat than just things you can't do. Not doing all those things makes space for what you can do. In the words of the 20th century thinker, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, we create a palace in time. By separating ourselves from all the things that occupy us during the week, we're able to enter an entirely new world and headspace without moving a millimeter. We build a metaphorical palace, a cocoon, a buffer around ourselves when we abstain from the grind of everyday life. Without the radical break from our daily activities, Shabbat would be like any other day of the week. We wouldn't feel that change in atmosphere that settles over us when Shabbat begins if we were still doom scrolling on our phones or heading out to the mall. Instead, we can devote the day to refreshing our souls and our spirits because we've set aside the routine stresses and labors of the week. Our time is spent breaking bread with friends and family and infusing ourselves with spirituality.
You need that relaxation, that rejuvenation to carry you on the next week. Otherwise, it's just a loop, and then you're gonna end up being like drained.
so all week we're stuck in our little wheel, but on Shabbat we're a little bit more free.
Tapping into the realness, into things that really matter.
And aside from giving us a spiritual breather every week, Shabbat teaches us something profound about what it really means to stop working. Because that work is really creation. All of the so-called work that we refrain from are things that demonstrate creativity or are a component of creative action. You might not consider turning your car on to be a creative act, but when that engine rumbles to life, you've lit a spark that wasn't there before. Creativity is one of our greatest God-given gifts. But the irony of our creativity is that it leaves room for us to deny God, because sometimes we get wrapped up in our own accomplishments and convince ourselves that everything we achieve is just down to us. But the truth is that everything we create is just a remix of God's original creation. So by putting aside work, by choosing not to create, we're reminding ourselves that true creativity comes from God. Our mastery of the world is an illusion. Shabbat is about shedding that illusion, about giving up control. It's humbling. Every week we commemorate and celebrate the original creation of the universe and remind ourselves about who's really in charge. But Shabbat doesn't only remind Jews who made the world, it also reminds us who steps in when the world breaks. That's why Shabbat doesn't just recall creation, it also recalls the Exodus, God's miracle-filled rescue of the Jewish people from enslavement in Egypt. Generations of subjugation had pulverized the Jewish spirit into dust, but God reached out with a metaphorical hand and pulled us from the depths of despair, transforming us from a ragged, defeated people into a nation ready to bring holiness into the world. By keeping Shabbat and remembering the Exodus, we bear weekly witness to God's presence in our lives. Shabbat is a reminder that we're never alone, never abandoned, never without hope. Shabbat celebrates God's role as the supreme creator of the universe, awesome and infinite, and his role down here on earth, involved with us, guiding us. It's all kind of heavy. Creation, Exodus, God's awesomeness. But Shabbat is also designed to be a day of enjoyment and delight. We spend 25 hours of Shabbat with ritual and food and family and friends, treats for kids with board games and books and Torah study. The kinds of things we're often just too busy to do. Shabbat demands sacrifice, but that sacrifice, that commitment is underpinned by a deep motivation because of what Shabbat gives us. Peace, perspective, permission to pause the hustle. All of the restrictions of the day transform what would otherwise be an ordinary day into a day of clarity about our place in the world. Shabbat is less about what you can't do and more about what you can do. It can seem like a day of no, but it's really a day of yes. Yes to spirituality, community, and family. Yes to centering God and to remembering what's really important.